And hello, internet world. Here's John Boy. He's in front of the light. John, you want to say hi? Hey, no, I just want to go outside. Okay, so this video is about. Well, I'm going to do some updates, but let me tell you the main thing I want to talk about. The main thing I want to talk about is radio drama. Now, the younger folks might not understand what that is. Oh, it's a bunch of drama. No, it's not like there's people having, a bunch of drama. It's radio plays. I don't know, I don't even remember why I thought about this, and I don't know how good the lighting is here. I'm trying not to show you my beautiful hairy chest, so anyway, my hairy chest is for my wife to see and the cats and nobody else. When I was in high school, on KTRH AM, which is a radio station out of Houston, and I was good, 60, 70 miles south of Houston. They had a radio show that I used to watch. I used to listen to. Excuse me, and I loved it. And I don't know if I still have it. I may have downloaded it to a external hard drive that Lucky Pete on, so I may not have it anymore. But you can go and find every single episode of CBS Radio Mystery Theater, and if you pay a small fee, you can download every single episode at one time. Well, I don't have enough disk space to do that, or you can do it free if you go episode by episode, which will take forever. I didn't look it up to see when the show started, when the show ended, or anything like that. But the first time I heard radio drama was in maybe the mid-70s, early to mid-70s. It would have been no earlier than 72. And that was The Lone Ranger. And you could send in, I think you would send in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and they'd send you a little card saying you were a member of the fan club, and you get a little plastic silver bullet. And I had that for years and years. And I don't know how many radio shows, souvenirs are still laying around that people may not even know what they are. I bet a lot of that stuff just got thrown away. CBS Radio Mystery Theater turned me on to the classics. Now, not every episode was from a classic book or whatever, but some of them were. There was Victor Hugo. Hold on, because I was getting two names mixed up. Poe. Actually, there were several different episodes with works by Edgar Allan Poe, and I don't remember his name. The Doyle, something Conan Doyle, the English author that wrote the detective stories. They had the Hound of the Baskervilles. I listened to that. Shakespeare. I think they had some Shakespeare. They probably did Romeo and Juliet. But that's what really turned me on to the classics. And then years later, many years later, when I could afford to go into the bookstores on my own and buy what I wanted to buy, I started buying some of these books. And for instance, Les Mis by Victor Hugo. I've never read the unabridged edition. Okay, actually I thought it was sitting right here, but I do have a copy of an unabridged edition of Les Miserables, but I've never been able to read it all the way through. I never get very far in it, to be honest with you. But I have read the abridged edition. I have read, I don't know how much of Poe, because so much of what Edgar Allan Poe wrote was so short that it's easy to read and reread. How blurry that is. But I mean, everybody knows there was a tapping at my bedroom door. Everybody knows The Raven, right? If you don't know The Raven, you need to read it. You can listen to it, you can read it, whatever. War of the Worlds. They always did War of the Worlds on Halloween. So, I got introduced to this stuff in high school, and the thing I like about radio drama is, although you have voices, you don't have pictures, you don't have illustrations, you have, that's all in your head. You have to, you see the characters. However you see the characters is how you see the characters. And I remember in Les Mis, Colette, because she grew from a small child to an adult in the story. But I always saw her as a brunette young lady, and it was so. But then, like I said, there was the Lone Ranger. Now that was the Lone Ranger. That was the old Lone Ranger from, I don't know, the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they just replayed it. And I would listen to that on the radio in my mom's car. I don't know where we would be going, but for some reason I was always in her car when the show came on. So I loved listening to it. Now that's the type of show a child would definitely enjoy. But then CBS Radio Mystery Theater, yeah, some of that would have been okay for children, but I think some of it would have been too scary for kids. Like The Murder in the Rue Morgue by Poe would, I don't know if I'd really want a child that was too young to listen to that. I mean, there were definitely shows that younger children probably should not have listened to. And there's still some episodes, I don't remember the titles of the episodes, I don't remember who starred in the episodes, so I'm not able to find them. One was, I thought it had something to do, the title had something to do with the Four Winds. And I don't remember too much about the episode, but it was like the four winds, like the winds from the four corners of the earth coming together, something like that. There was another episode where somebody was backpacking in Colorado, I believe, and they stumbled upon this village or town, and the people living there, they were dressed like 1860s. And one of the, maybe I shouldn't give it away, but this guy, I think it was he and like his girlfriend were backpacking, and they find the town. Well, it turns out that these people were like 150 years old, 130 years old. They were all Confederates and their families. That when the war ended, they didn't go to Mexico, they didn't go to Brazil. They moved to Colorado, up deep into the mountains of Colorado. And if you left, you would die. And I don't remember what it was about the town, but something happened and everybody wound up dead. Everybody wound up dying. At least I think that was what happened. So, and then on KTRH, and I think KTRH is still a news talk station, but I don't know because I don't live in Texas, and geez, I lived some 20 plus years in San Antonio, and I lived about 3 years in the Hill Country, so it's been a long time since I've been to the Houston area, and I don't listen to news talk anyway. But KTRH would have CBS Radio Mystery Theater. And then I think they had, I remember what got me to thinking about this. I was at the Old Farmer's Almanac site, and it had something like Night Watch or Sky Watch. And one show that would come on, it was kind of short, and it had something to do with Night Watch or Sky Watch or Star Watch. And it was an astronomy show. And they'd talk about what planets were visible, what stars were visible, the constellations that were visible, things like that. And they'd say, you know, these planets are moving, and it was really cool. And then another radio drama would come on, which I don't remember what it was called, but it was, I believe, sponsored by the Baha'i Faith. I listened to it. I mean, not all the time, because these shows would come on. I was in a place. Let's just say that. And back then you didn't have, like cell phones didn't exist. I mean, people back then would talk about car phones. It was like, how do you drag a wire behind your car? I remember one of the detective shows on the TV, not Ironsides, but the guy's other show. His private detective had a car phone, and I thought it was so cool. And this was like the 1960s, 50s or 60s, I guess the 60s. And I'm like, how does a car phone work? And I talked to people my age, and we're like, no, that you can't do that. How are you going to drag a wire behind you? You're going to get wrapped up on everything. It's going to break. And but those phones were radio phones. And my mother had a radio phone at one point. And this would have been 90s, I guess, 80s, 90s. They never worked, because at that point so many people had them that when you try to use it, you couldn't communicate in or out. So they were worthless, useless. But then came the cell phone, and they were in big boxes, real thick, and you had to carry it over your shoulder, and the charge didn't last all that long. Anyway, so radio drama, I really like radio drama. And some of the videos that I watch on the YouTube, there's not much in the way of visual, of things to look at. It's audio. They're audio programs, and they're stories. And a lot of the ones that I listen to, they're like ghost stories and mysteries and stuff like that. Crime, but it's audio. And somebody like me who enjoys going out in the woods, even though I haven't done it in a while, listening to like scary camping stories, you can just imagine. I'm going to be out there one night, laying down, wrapped up in my blanket, and I'm going to hear some noise coming up to me. I'm going to go, uh-oh. But I'll have my flintlock with me. So that's a good segue into the flintlock. In the next 1, 2, 3 weeks, I should have a working flintlock. Yay! I won't say his name, but he came by today. He was looking at it. He was asking me questions. I was asking him questions. I mean, this is a fantastic guy. He was stationed at the same naval base that I was born. Of course, not at the same time. He's not that old. But he could have been born there around the same time, but no, he would not have been stationed there at the same time. Actually, I think he's older than me, but he does the historical reenacting. He was at Fort at number 4, excuse me, at number 4 this past weekend for the F&I War reenactment, French and Indian War reenactment. I don't know how many years it's been since I've been wanting to go and I haven't been able to go. Now, there's a reason we didn't go this year, and that's because of my back. But you know, the sergeant, oh God, you don't know how relieved I am. I've been very happy today. I have been very happy today. And I may not, you know, I don't think I really express my happiness or my anger, or maybe my anger sometimes, but I don't express things. I don't really tell people, you know, how I'm feeling necessarily. If I'm grouchy or upset, then, you know, you can tell by, you know, I may get a little short-tempered or sharp or whatever. But, you know, when I'm happy, I don't really tell anybody. But I did it just now, right? Because, and the doctor, the surgeon, he showed me the x-rays and he showed me the MRI. Well, he didn't show me every image of from the MRI, but he showed me the important images. And boy, I tell you what, there's that nerve going right down there, big and thick and everything. Not like in my neck, where it's damaged, it's really thin. I still need to be careful with what I do. I actually don't know where my cane is right now. And that's not good. But I got out I actually didn't want to necessarily get all this out, because I was like, oh no, my wife is going to, you know, because I don't want to upset my wife by making a mess, because in order to get the stuff, my colonial period kit, in order to get it out, I have to make a mess to get it out of the closet. And she doesn't like me doing that, for good reason, of course. I mean, she has every right, every reason not to like me making a mess. Boy, I know how to make a mess. I'm still trying to figure out how to explain that to somebody who doesn't speak English. Mess. Because when I was in college, there was this girl who was auditing a remedial English class. And she was from Deutschland, from Germany. And I was telling her something about, I got a mess of that. She's like, what? Yeah, I got a mess of that. You know, I guess you'd have to say you have a large amount or a large number of. That's an example I can provide, since, you know, I have dealt with that. So you have to say it's a large quantity. And that's not necessarily exactly the way, I mean, you know, that's not quite the way you would say it necessarily, but anyway. So in the next few weeks, I should have a working 50 caliber flintlock rifle. I do need to get some more flints, because those things don't last very long. I have a sufficient kit to go on a hike with. My wife isn't going to like me gone. She can come with me if she wants, but I don't think she'd be very comfortable, because the way I'm going to be camping is not going to be modern style. And oh, by the way, northern New Hampshire, Coos County, Berlin, Mount Washington, that whole area up there, they're going to be freezing tonight. Not like a deep freeze. I mean, it's going to be like the upper 20s, mid to upper 20s. But, you know, that's what you deal with up here. And one of my cousins up in Canada, who I used to go backpacking with, she posted a picture. They were out on the water, in, you know, canoes, kayaks, and whatnot. And that's another thing, whatnot. How do you explain to somebody who doesn't speak English or is learning English what whatnot means? You know, various items, various watercraft. Anyway, and I'm like, my goodness, and I was about to say her name, I won't say her name, but I'm like, my goodness, I've been up to British Columbia. I backpacked on the West Coast Trail. Was it August? Did it in August. And I was living in Texas at the time. August in Texas. It's like 105 degrees, 110 degrees. Humidity's not too bad, about 30-35%. Unless, you know, there's a hurricane or something like that. But, you know, humidity's not too bad. Unlike southeast Texas, where it's always 100%. But anyway, so I'm like, I was up, like I said, I was up there in August one year, and it was freaking cold. It doesn't get that cold here at night. We're not quite that far north though, but awfully close. And we're out there, we're backpacking at night in my tent. And mind you, the tent is about 5 or 10 degrees warmer than it is outside the tent. And I put my long johns on, I put my clothes on, I put my fleece on over that. I got in my sleeping bag, and I was still shivering. August. Now, I do have to admit, at this one particular campsite, we were right on the beach. You have that wind coming up off the ocean. That probably cooled things down. But, so it's going to get cold, at least up north. We're not going to freeze, though. On to another point, another update. I found another family cemetery. This one in Virginia. I won't say the town. I won't say the former name of the town. I won't say the current name of the town. At most, I will say Southeast Virginia. Now, mind you, my family arrived there in 1630. 1630. And the oldest grave markers that I could find are from the 1800s. It's not a very big graveyard, and it looks like there are probably quite a few unmarked graves. I don't know who. The cemetery is named for my family, not my dad's family, my mom's family. It's clean. The grass is cut. There are some new headstones. I actually should go back and look to see what the dates are on those. But I would like to go and visit that graveyard. When I go bury my mom, you know, I won't be able to do anything more than go to North Carolina and come back. You know, if my wife and I go and we see her family down in Virginia, then maybe, very unlikely, but maybe we can go there. I would like to go to the church that was founded by my family, not the denomination, but that local congregation was founded by my family. And at one time it was referred to by not necessarily the last name of the family, but by the first name of an individual in the family that I come from, because Actually, it wasn't a church at the time. They had services in his house, and that eventually became a church. Or not the build. I don't think the house ever became the church. I think it remained his house, but a church was eventually built. And there is, by the way, in this particular Virginia graveyard, a Reverend so and so, which is not unusual for my family. I don't know what denomination he would have been. My mother's family's denomination, actually I think my grandfather and grandmother came from 2 different denominations, maybe. I think I heard that. But my dad's family's denomination is I guess you could say, a German denomination. Anyway, so yeah, I should have a working 50 caliber flintlock. And because what the surgeon said, because what my doctor not here in town, we don't have doctors in this town. There used to be a doctor that lived here at one time. Actually, he treated people. He was, he'd go to people's houses and help take care of them. No, my mom and uncle, they were born at home. So, to think, that was 1 generation ago. Eins. 1 generation ago. And how things change, eh? So, but I would like to find a cemetery, or the cemetery, or the cemeteries, plural, in Virginia where my family is buried. I don't mean the newer, well, I do mean the newer ones, but what I'm talking about here are the older ones, the ones that would go back to the 1600s, the 17th century. My persona when I eventually do the reenacting is 18th century, mid 18th century, French and Indian War, and eventually I might expand that. Actually, I'm hoping that Memorial Day I will have my rifle, and I am going to dress in my kit, and I am going to go to an event. And I can walk to that event, by the way. But I've made this video quite a bit longer than, well, I said I had updates and stuff too. So when I do go on my hike, and it's probably only going to be 3 or 4 days, maybe 5. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to cause more damage to myself, and so forth and so on. And I move really slow now. I'm getting better at that. I'm actually getting better at not trying to walk so fast. Because when I try to walk at what used to be my normal pace, I tend to trip over myself. I trip over my feet. Sometimes my feet will drag, and that's all due to the nerve damage. So I'm starting to just normally walk slower. But it's taken years to get to this point. And I will say this: you doctors in Texas suck. You could have diagnosed this yourselves, but you sure didn't. But maybe I wouldn't have some of the problems I have now if they would have done their freaking job. That's what you get when you pove. But anyway, so what I was going to say was, when I go on my little hike, my wife says she does not want to be with me when I do this. I'm going to see, like, I see a person or 2 or 3 people, I'm going to say, you don't want to go that way. The English, they've sent 500 regulars and 300 militia from Boston. They're going to be here in the next week or 2. You want to get to a French fort as soon as you can. When I had my old Facebook page, and I was in one group, I don't remember which one it was, some people, they had been camping. They were at an event. They were historical reenactors. They were in there. It's like when you go to these events, you don't go to your campsite and change into modern clothing. You stay in your persona the whole time. That's part of the enjoyment of it, part of the pleasure of it. And they decided they needed something from the store, like a soda water or a candy bar. Well, I call it a soda water. That's it's like a southeast Texas thing. Soda water is like an RC Cola, a Coca-Cola, a Pepsi Cola. We just call them soda water, or soda waters. Give me a soda water. You're like, you want soda water? Yeah, soda water, like an RC. An RC? What's that? RC Cola. Never heard of it. Moxie? Coke? Pepsi? That's a soda water. Okay. But they were walking down the road. Down the road. And you couldn't see where this event was from the road, and it was at nighttime. And she said this car was driving down this dark, unlit rural road. I said, again, and I hate when I say that. Anyway, and the driver saw them and slowed down really slow and was like watching them. Because they're all dressed in 18th century garb. And they just acted normal. They didn't look at the driver. They just kept walking. And then when the car got past him, he floored that thing. He got out of there. He thought he was seeing ghosts. So, maybe either they're going to think I'm nuts, which I am. I mean, I have no problems admitting that. Or they're going to go like, man, we saw a ghost when we were out there in the middle of the day. So, we'll see. So, anyway, have a fantastic day, fantastic evening, fantastic night, fantastic morning. Have a fantastic life.